how windy is too windy for kayak fishing. 10 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour? I'm not actually gonna tell you how windy is too windy. I'm gonna let you decide for yourself, and I'm gonna give you a ton of information to inform that decision. One of the coolest things that I found out there is actually I'm gonna show you how to identify wind speed in real time. You don't have to break out your phone, you don't have to do any research, you don't have to go to Wind Finder. Literally just by looking around you, I'm gonna show you how to do that. And I proposed this question, how windy is too windy for kayak fishing, because this sport is blowing up. There are kayak fishermen coming online every single day. And if you don't know what you're doing out there, and if you have some inexperience because you are a beginner, not a problem at all, this is an important question to answer, because to be blunt, it could cost you your life. Buzzkill. But seriously, if you don't know what you're doing out in the water, it could cost you. Here's some headlines. Check this out. Metro Detroit kayakers who died on Lake Superior faced strong winds. All right, here's another headline. This one's kind of heartbreaking. In fact, it said heartbreaking video shows stranded kayakers' final moments. And here's another one from Kayak Angler. It says the scary truth about the increase in paddle sports related deaths. Hundreds of people die every single year, and I don't want you to be one of them. So I'm glad you're here. Learning what you're about to learn can really get you out of a hairy situation or worse. So let's lighten things up a little bit after all that talk about death and dying. Seriously, why are you still talking about it? So I threw a poll up on my community tab. If you're not part of that, you gotta be part of the community, man. So you gotta hit the sub and bell notification so you can participate and see the results of those polls. So go ahead and do that. I asked the same question as I titled in this video. How windy is too windy for kayak fishing? And to be honest with you, I've never had so much engagement and so many people writing in giving their answers. We had 169 votes. It's still happening in real time, so this can keep going up. Out of those 169 votes, 5 to 10 miles an hour, they said 11% of you said, I'm out. That's too windy for me. 46 of you said 11 to 15, I'm done. I'm off the water. I'm not even thinking about heading out to the water. All right, moving on. 16 to 20. This is kind of crazy. This is really windy out on a body of water. 27% said that is your point right there. And then just for fun, I put hell or high water. I'm going fishing. You're some crazies out there. 16% of you are just nuts. Well, some of you that were polled may change your mind because a little wind is fine, but a lot of wind, well, it can turn sketchy real fast. I'm just guessing that most of you do not have an anemometer in your back pocket. And to be honest with you, I spent the last minute trying to figure out how to pronounce anemometer. So an anemometer, oh my gosh, freaking wind speed gauge. I actually had to go to YouTube to figure it out.
Anemometers. Anemometers.
You don't have one of those in your back pocket. And you can do one of two things. You can head over to your phone. A lot of times those weather apps will tell you. You can go to windfinder.com, or you can do something much cooler and something that's more in real time, which is deduce the wind speed from your surroundings. And I'm going to show you how to do that. The scale is really, really cool. So essentially what you can do is by looking around and seeing how the wind is affecting the things around you, you can determine the wind speed. It was actually created by a rear admiral in the Royal Navy back in the 1800s, back before they had the weather app and back before they had anemometers. Oh my gosh, I hate that word. The scale actually runs from like 0 to 12, 0 being completely calm, 12 being like hurricane force winds. But I'm not gonna go through every single one of them. I'm just gonna focus on the ones between 10 miles an hour and like 30 miles an hour, being that's what I polled my community on. All right, as I go through these, please throw in the comment sections below if I'm going through these scales and I start showing what it does to a kayak fisherman out on the water. I want you to write with your miles per hour when you are out. You're like, I'm getting off the water, or that's the line for me. I'm not even thinking about getting on the water. I see it in the weather in the future, and this is a 0 day when it comes to fishing. So have some fun, throw those in the comments. Here we go. Starting with number 1 to 3 miles an hour. I mean, you could start to barely see ripples on the water. Smoke will slowly start to wane through the air. Most of us right here, we're still fishing. This is like a perfect day. Now, the next one is 4 to 7 miles an hour. At 4 to 7 miles an hour, you can start to feel the wind on your face. And the leaves are starting to rustle around. And if there are any waves out on the water, they're still glassy. You're not gonna see any white caps at 4 to 7. Now we're getting into the thick of it. We're looking at 8 to 12 miles an hour. By looking around you, you're starting to see the leaves on the trees and the twigs. They're in constant motion. Any light flags, they're gonna start to extend. And if you're out on the water, you might even start seeing some white caps all around you. And according to the poll, some of you, you're like, that's it, you're out. So if you were there, tell me what mile per hour, you're like, I am gone. And now we're into 13 to 18 miles an hour. This is when things start to get a little bit serious. Your small waves just got bigger. I mean, if you're on land, this is lifting paper up off the ground, dust is up off the ground. There are frequent white caps at 13 to 18 miles an hour. If you use a paddle to power your yak, you're gonna have a heck of a time out in the water right now, and you should really start thinking about heading home because it's gonna be really difficult to force that kayak against the wind. So those with electric or pedal power, you could still be in the fishing game. And now I'm talking to you crazy fishermen out there. This is the 19 to 24 miles an hour. Now you're starting to get wet. Spray's starting to come over your bow. You got water in your kayak. Things aren't looking good. Small trees are starting to sway. I mean, it's getting pretty serious. If you use a paddle to power your kayak, you're actually calling your buddy, hey, I need you to come back over here and hook up my tow rope and take me back to the dock. If you have a pedal powered kayak, it's gonna be tough. You're gonna be able to get back to the dock, and all you electric powered kayaks, you're still good to go. It's just getting wild out on the water right now. If you're finding value, please hit the like button, help me out a little bit. And now we're moving on to 25 to 31 miles an hour. If you're still out in the water, you're crazy. Large trees are moving. You can start to hear the whistling sound over the telephone wires. If you were to use an umbrella, it'd be very difficult and be blowing it inside out. If you're on the water and aren't powered by an electric motor, you're gonna be in trouble at 25 to 31 miles an hour. Scale actually goes up to 75 miles per hour, like I said, but we're not gonna go up that far because if you go past this point, it's getting pretty dangerous out there. But I would love to hear, if you haven't done it yet, throw in the comments, what was your breaking point? I would love to hear it. And of course, guys, I do research on these videos. This is not a stream of consciousness before you. I'm not pulling these things out of my rear end. I actually do a lot of study so I can bring content and value to you. And so I actually did some research on this, and what does the majority of the people out here, the experts in the field, say it's actually too windy to be out in the water in a kayak. And this is what they said. The safe fishing limits for small bodies of water range between 15 and 20 miles per hour. But if you're in a large body of water, you should really start calculating the risks around 10 to 15 miles an hour. Of course, in my studies, I came across all kinds of information, but I'm gonna leave you with a bullet point list. I think it's really important. If you're gonna head out there, if you're really serious about safety, no fish is worth your life. And so here's some things to keep in mind. Number one, just because you're a strong swimmer doesn't mean you're immune to drowning. Guys, back in 2015, I swam 50.6 miles in 36 non-stop hours across Lake Michigan. I still wear a personal flotation device. In fact, I have one of my favorites. I did a video, a little review on it. You can check that up in the cards. Some of you might be like, what? 50.6 non-stop miles in 36 hours. I'll probably have to break out that story a little later in some of my videos, but for now, I'm gonna keep on moving on. Number two, be aware of the water temperature, and you really should know how to do a deep water re-entry back into your kayak. In fact, this is on my video cues. Right now, it's like 10 degrees in Northeast Ohio, so I'm not gonna be showing you how to do that. But once spring and summer rolls around, I'm gonna show you how to re-enter your kayak in deep water. Guys, you might have never fallen out of your kayak before. I know I haven't, but years ago, I was up in the Boundary waters and I was out fishing by myself because I was doing some late night fishing right as the sun was going down. I was probably a half a mile from the camp. I accidentally hit my sunglasses and they fell off. Well, my reaction was to grab them. Before I know it, I flipped the entire canoe with all my gear. Luckily, I was in 6 feet of water. I was able to grab all that stuff from the bottom because if you've never been to the Boundary waters, oh man, just excellent fishing. You got the pike, there's water wolves, you got smallmouth bass. If you're thinking about an awesome trip, head up there. But what I'm saying is that it could have been really hairy if I was out in the middle of the lake. So do some research. If you don't know how to do a deep water re-entry to your kayak, there's some nuances to it. You're just not gonna pop yourself back in a kayak. So it might even be good for you to practice. Number three, if you river fish, especially if you river fish with your kids, watch out for those low head dams. And what those are is basically maybe just a 5-foot drop, but at the bottom that water churns. This shouldn't be a surprise to you either. 70% of all drowning victims have alcohol detected in their bloodstream. Guys, Paddling and drinking simply do not mix. And here's a good one, and here's the reason I didn't want to share with you what your number should be, because you should know your limits and your ability. If you're new to this and you haven't even thought about any of the things we talked about today, well, you might not want to start heading out in 15 to 20 mile per hour winds. That could be a bad day for you. And so know your ability, know your limits. If you've been doing this for 5 years plus, and you've been through the white caps, and you've practiced how to do deep water reentry, well, you might be good. You might be good in 15 to 20, and you might still like fishing and really enjoy that. So know your abilities and know your limits. And also for those salt life guys, you gotta be, of course, if you're doing, and maybe you might be doing it for the first time, you start heading out into salt water, you gotta know your tides, and you gotta know your rip currents. You gotta know how to get out of those. So make sure you do your research on that if you are thinking about fishing saltwater for the first time. Those are just the things that are within your control, and what you really have to watch out before, because you are a kayak, there's a lot of other watercraft out there, or other watercraft that are intoxicated, or may have overstepped their abilities and their limits. So you really gotta be defensive, being that you're the smaller vessel. Also, you don't move that fast, so always be aware of your surroundings. Maybe a boat that's up on plane, it can't see you. That's why it's good sometimes to throw up some flags in your kayak. Might be a good idea, just to continue to be safe. There's a ton of things I wish I knew before I got into this sport. In fact, if you like this video, you will love this one. 11 things I wish someone would have told me before I started kayak fishing. Check it out right there. And don't forget to join this community by hitting that sub and bell and like button, and I will see you in the next video or out in the water. Thanks for watching, guys.